Hello, today I'm going to give you a quick demonstration on colour mixing and using the three primary colours to great effect. So I've got here blue and ultramarine, so I'm using a Winsor & Newton Cotman. My red is an alizarin crimson, it's a nice dark red, and a yellow, which is a cadmium yellow hue. So I've just put those out into my palette. And I'm going to use these to mix some colours. I'm going to paint today a nice sort of floral bloom. This is inspired by the artist Georgia O'Keeffe, who always did really big floral pieces and filled a page. And these are typical of some of the colours that she would use too. So you can see here we've got some purples, I've got some dark reds, oranges, pinks, some really nice shades, and those are all going to come just from our three primary colours. So just a little reminder, to get a colour paler you add more water. You can see here I've already got a little sample of my red, so I'm going to show you with the blue. If I add the tiniest bit of water just to get that moving. There's my ultramarine. If I add more water to it, take a little bit more here. You can see that I have something slightly paler. And then more water I add. You can get a really lovely pale blue. So already, just with that colour, we've already got a huge variety there. So if you want to go down the route of greens, you're going to mix together your yellow and your blue. I'm going to work mostly with mixing reds and purple and blues to give me purples and pinks. And I'm going to work with the red and the yellow to give me some oranges and nice peach colours. You'll see I've got 2 pots of water here actually, which is really essential if you're going to be doing a lot of colour mixing. You don't want to be changing your water all the time, but I'm going to use this one for dark colours and this one for the lighter ones. Let's just put this to one side for the moment. We're going to have a look at mixing. So I've got a few pots here. The other thing I'm going to do is work on, when I come to paint, a wet on wet method. So I will paint one layer and then while that's still wet, add another colour in. So that's going to give me even more variety. I'm using my medium brush here. Let's give that a good wash off. I've got my paper towel to hand. Make sure that's nice and clean. So I'm going to take a little bit of my red, my nice alizarin crimson. I'm going to add some in there, and then I'm going to put some on this side. So this is going to become my orange colours, and this side is going to become my purples. There we go. So I'm going to use this for my colours here. Clean off. And lift a little bit of the yellow. I'm going to put that on the side. Clean off again. Let's get that mixed in. And you can already see that we've got a really nice orange colour. Put some yellow in here. So really the best way of doing this is just to mix your colours and try them out and see what you like. If you find a colour that you really love, mix enough. Add a little bit more red into here. So already we're starting to get a few different colours. I'm going to mix some more of this one. So keep washing your brush in between, and then you're managing to keep your original colours nice and pure. I'm going to see what those look like in a moment. So over here, I've already got some blue with a little bit of water in. I'm going to add some red to that. That's giving us a really lovely pink colour. I'm going to take a little bit of my blue. Squeeze out a little bit more red. A bit low on that. And this is my original pot here. So take the time in mixing the colours. I'm going to use some of that red on its own as well. A little bit of red. That's a darker purple. So I think for the moment, I'm happy to go with that. I'm going to try these all out. See what colours I've got here. So I know I have my blue. I have my red. You can use those on their own or layered on top of something else. On this side I have my nice warm orange colour. I have something slightly paler. I'm going to add some water to that. And that's given me lots of really lovely tones. This is my really nice dark purple. I add water, you can see that's getting paler and paler. There were some really nice colours in there. And then this sort of rose pink colour, dusky pink, very nice. I'm going to use a combination of all of these colours to paint on my drawing. So the line's quite dark on this. I'm going to take my putty rubber, just roll that over, just to take some of these lines out, because of course you can see the lines through watercolour because it's a translucent paint. If I were doing this with acrylic or perhaps even some inks, then I probably wouldn't worry too much about taking the lines out. I want this nice and pale. I'm going to use a lot of wet on wet method, and I want these to almost run into each other, these colours. So this is not a botanical study. This is a sort of semi-abstract piece. So that's right down now. I'm going to take a big brush. I'm going to start from the outside and work my way in. I'm going to start off with this darkish purple. I'm putting that on with a big brush. Then just water. So this is a lot of sort of serendipity really with this, and see where the colour goes. On to my next one. Same thing again. Purple. Clean that off. I'm actually going to dip into a little bit of this pink. And those two colours will run in together beautifully. I'm not going to paint the next petal here because those colours will run in. I want to keep that separate. So I'm going to go on to this one here. I'm going to start off with this pink. You can see I'm working with this big brush and I'm working fairly quickly. I don't want to overthink this at all. I want some really nice pale areas, some darker. So I can see here that the paint's pooling here, it's much lighter. I've got a little sort of natural mark here, and I'm just going to leave that. That's what I'm going to go with. Onto this one, move back to my slightly darker colour. Pop that on, back in, grab a little bit of water. So you want colour variety, and you can see where we have more water, the same colour, we've got completely different results. Have another one here. I'm going to go back to this nice pink that we mixed. I want to do another layer on this, so it depends on how quickly you paint, how many of these petals you get done. But before this dries out, I actually want to swap to a different brush and put a little bit of detail on these. In with my medium brush, I'm going to take some more of that dark purple. I'm just going to run that round the edge, very slightly, a bit thicker on one side than on the other. Same on here. Keeping it fairly loose. I'm not even holding my brush particularly firm or down here. I'm kind of holding it halfway up, and that's making sure I don't focus too much on the detail. You will start to see that these colours blend in. So here, I'm just going to push my brush down so I can vary up. So I can put a really fine line around the outside. And as I come to here, if I push my brush down, it goes slightly thicker. If you find that it's dried off, you can just get a damp brush and just blend it in. But this is the sort of effect that I'm looking for, where the colour's actually running in together. Add a little bit of water, those colours will start to blend. Back to my larger brush. So I'm just going to show you this one half today rather than doing the whole thing for you, but you can use exactly the same method, obviously, to do both halves of the painting. So where it started to dry off, I know I'll be able to come in and put these next petals on. So this one here, for example, I can do this. These are actually started to dry a little. I want a slightly different colour. I'm going to take one of these peachy colours that we have over here. I'm not worrying too much if they run in, but I don't want it spreading right over. Again, just really, the reason I'm using a large brush is that I don't overpaint it. And I can really just relax into the colours rather than thinking too much about keeping within the lines. It really doesn't matter. I really love that colour, and I can see where it's pooling. I've actually got something darker here than I have at the top. Going again with the same colour. Add a little bit more at the bottom. I know that one's still quite wet there, so I'm going to leave that for a moment. Now I'm going to start building up in the middle. I'm going to keep these darker. It would naturally be darker as the petals go in. So I'm going to go back to this original purple. I'm going to pop a few of these in. Let's get some of my red as well. So this is the pure red. Those will mix in together. So I can see these are starting to dry off and they're actually looking really lovely. When I'm finished this, I actually go back over this with some pencil just to define some of the lines. I think this is dry enough now. Let's come in with this slightly paler here. I think I'm probably going to need a bit more water with this one. Got a little bit of the purple running in there. That can be a danger. Orange and purple can make quite a muddy brown. But here I'm going to use it to look like it's a petal that's almost just started to turn. I want that slightly darker here. I'm going to add in some of my red. I'm trying to get a variety in colour. I don't want these to be all the same. In fact, I shall drop a little bit of the dark red in there too. This is my original red again. I'm going to put a little bit of that pinky in. Again, more water, just so it's paler. Watercolour is about building up layers. Don't expect to get the finished colour all at once. Want plenty of light and dark. Using the fact that you know these colours will run in together. Just leaving some white edging on here. Go back to something slightly more purpley. I think this painting always comes together just at the end with the finishing touches. Let's put a pinky one over here. While that's still wet, I can pop in either some dark or some blue just at the bottom. Going to make sure I keep that purple away from that orange because I know that will go very brown. So I really like some of the colours that are happening here, particularly like this where it's much paler at the end, darker in the middle, and some of the areas here. So this is called cauliflowering. A lot of artists really hate it, but I kind of embrace it. So it's where your first layer has started to dry, you've put a second one on, and I think it's perfect for flowers. And you start to get some really nice textured, exactly the same as happened here. And you can start to see it happening as well here. So it's kind of something I go along with, and I almost use that technique to create a little bit of interest. So while this is still wet here, I'm going to swap back to my smaller brush. Just going to start to dot in some detail, doing that with a really dark. I'm actually going to add a little bit more blue into that. So this is dried up here now. I'm going to put a little bit more blue here. Just want to show you another variation. This is essentially the ultramarine blue, lots of water in it, just the tiniest bit of that purple. That's giving us another whole colourway. You can see some of these, I'm leaving a white edge on. I might fill that in later. And for the moment, it stops the run. So here, I quite like that blending in together. But I don't want it to blend into this pinky colour here. So you can see this is really starting to take shape now. And I'll get this dried off before I put the finished detailing in. I'll darken slightly here, again here. Adding a few more little dots as detail. So I'm going to finish off this bottom half, get this dried off, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the finishing touches. So now I've finished the other side of the flower and this is all dried off. We can see that we've got some absolutely beautiful colours here from where they've mixed in. Watercolours always dry a little bit paler and I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. Now just want to put in a little bit more detail here, and although this is a sort of a semi-abstract, you still want to be able to see that it's a flower. So I'm going to redefine some of these petals with my nice soft pencil. So you do have to make sure that your paint is absolutely dry before you do this. I'm just going to start here. Again, working on the same principle as I did before, this continuous line. Is going to keep it nice and loose. Start to work in again some of those. Now you can do this with a black fine liner. It also looks really lovely if you happen to have a gold pen as well. So I'm going slightly outside some of these, going over again. And where I see a really nice shape, I'm just working my way around that. Keep that light here and a little bit darker where they would join together, a little bit lighter around the edge. So some of my petals from when I drew them might have actually shifted now that they've got paint. on them. One large petal now I might separate down into two. It's quite an odd shape, this one here, so I'm going to split that down. Keep that nice and light round here. Again, that's one of the petals that's worked really well, particularly well where that colour mix is. That should take me right back to the beginning. So do as much or as little as you want at this point. Start to go round on some of these smaller ones here. So you can see this is definitely not a botanical study, but we can see it's something floral, we can see their petals, and we've got some beautiful colours. This is a semi-abstract. I'm just going to take some of my colours again. Just going to finish off by spattering some of my colours. I'm going to take my yellow. So I'm going to keep that concentrated in the middle. I'm just tapping the end of the brush. Looks like all the pollen is on the end. Breaks up that central piece. Going with some red too. So there we go. We've just used 3 primary colours. So we used an alizarin crimson, an ultramarine, and a cadmium yellow. And we've managed to create a really lovely variety of different colours. Let's peel the tape off. So I've done a flower today, but you can use the same principles for lots of different semi-abstract paintings. So there we go. So just a reminder, I drew this first, and then I've gone in and mixed together my red, yellow and blue, 3 primary colours, and that's given us a whole variety of beautiful pinks and purples.